Hello and welcome to a new video. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than my usual videos. So recently I have been making some reels here on YouTube and on Instagram doing these portraits from the show A Night of the Seven Kingdoms because I kind of got obsessed with it. I've had a lot of people asking me for like a tutorial or just for some like advice or tips on like how I colour these pictures in. So I just wanted to make a little video kind of talking about that, which is what this video is going to be, because I don't do tutorials. I don't make tutorials, and that's because there isn't exactly a step-by-step method when it comes to me doing art. Like, I think you can gather from my videos that I kind of have general steps that I like to do, but there is no like, here's step one, here's step two way to explain my art, because I kind of just make it up as I go, and I'm constantly tweaking things and adjusting things all the time, which also then makes me feel like I don't know how I would explain that. So what I wanted to do is just try and give some insight to how I've been doing these pictures. So I thought I would kind of like try and go through a couple of the reels that I've made. I unfortunately no longer have a lot of the original footage of these because it was taking up a lot of space on my phone and on my computer. So the first one I did was Maker Targaryen, this guy here. And what I typically like to do with any illustration in general is find a kind of like mid-ish light tone to put down as an entire base. So you can see here I'm like starting with this light colour. I like to build up to my darks because I always find it easier to add dark than try and add lighter colours. It's a lot easier with acrylic markers if you want to add lighter colours over darker colours, but typically it's how I find it easier building up, like trying to get 3D shapes and like especially with a face. So with these videos that is what I'm doing. So you can kind of see that I started with a big base light colour, and then I've just been like slowly adding in the shadows. And for these pictures specifically, I have been using my RTX pens. So the one I've been using the most is this purple set here. I don't have the lid anymore because I I like to have it just out on my desk like this. So I'll put a picture of it up on the screen, which one it is that I use. But this is the swatch sheet for it. These have lasted a very long time, but so as you can see, these colours here are the ones that I use the most for starting my face, my portraits. If you want to know like the specifics, the colour 21 is the one that I used as the base for all of my portraits. I would then go to 19 to add like the slight shading because it's only just a little bit different, so it's not a huge difference, but it makes enough to make it like subtle. Then I moved to C21 because, you know, it's darker, and I typically like to start around the eye with the eye socket and the eyebrows, because that's usually one of the like darker places on a face because that's where a lot of the shadows are, and I find it easier to just build up from there. And like, because you've got eye bags around there and the brow, and it just helps you then create the shape for the nose. It helps create a more 3D plane, I think, with faces, because you have like these shapes that then also imply the cheekbones. It's one of my favourite parts of faces to colour and draw because it holds so much shape. I like to leave lighter patches because obviously there are parts in that area that stick out. So like, let me get the finished picture. So like there are little highlights on like the eye bags and the underbrow bit because they would catch some light, but they're not like the lightest colour. They're pretty light, but they're not the lightest. And then I also like to go in because like this is kind of a limited colour palette when it comes to doing faces because there are a lot of colours in just a regular face, and I am kind of just sticking mostly to the pinks. but I like to try and like bring purples and blues into it. It can help create a lot of depth, but also I really like trying to push colours in pictures and just make them way more saturated than they are, which is why like his beard has purples and blues in it. When you think of like a white hair or a white beard, you don't really think of many colours, or at least typically I wouldn't expect that. But then they do like catch the light and there are colours. Like, I don't know how I'm trying to explain this. So I like to push it, and so that's why his hair is actually mostly like purple and pinks and stuff, because it kind of all works together to give the impression of being white hair. And yeah, so what I was saying was I like to, you know, add purples to the face, because also it creates like the shadows, like rather than just leaving them all being pink, there is depth there, I find, by adding blues and purples. It's one of the reasons why I always want there to be more purples in colour packs, because I like using them to add shadows. I think another thing that kind of affects this though is because these pens that I'm using are quite old now. They've been lasting a very long time, but I think they're coming up to being 2 years old. So I'm really impressed they've lasted as long as they have. But like, for example, this is the pen that I like to use for the purple shading. It is pen 41. This has actually gotten quite watery, which I think is why it works really nicely for adding those little shade bits, because it kind of blends. There's then also the fact that I am lazy when it comes to doing anything, so I don't wait for them to dry, so they kind of blend a bit better. It helps them to blend more, because when you know, use wet on wet, there is typically a bit of a blending motion. It's kind of tricky, because there's then also the fact that each time I do the faces, I kind of forget what I've done on a previous one. I did start to get into a bit of a rhythm of like using a couple of the same colours. Like I said, I used 21 for the base, then 19, 20, C21, 22 to just build up more colours. A couple people were also asking for like how I colour people's hair. What I like to do, like I said, is just pick out colours that are present in the pictures and just push them. If you take this picture of Arian, for example, as well, like his hair is also platinum white, but I've like tried to add a bunch of other colours to imply that it's white without it just being white. So again, it's more of like a purple lavender kind of deal. Yeah, I think it's also because like I don't want things to just be like really flat, if that makes sense. I really want them to have like loads of colour in them, and so I really like try and push the colours of what I'm looking at. Obviously, when it came to doing all of these portraits, I had a reference, so that is another thing that I would like highly recommend when doing these things, is having a reference. Basically, it really helps to just put like one base colour down first. So like I said, I did that with the 21 pen, then I used the 19 pen, and again, looking at the reference, I just went in and picked out where the shapes were, the shapes that I find important. So for example, you really want to try and like highlight that there is shape to the forehead. You don't want it to be flat. This is another case where I really liked the eyebrows, because they kind of like, you see this shape here, the eyebrows help define that the forehead is like going like this, and then you have another plane of the face coming down here. So I really like to try and accentuate, try and define a bit, even though it's quite subtle here, this line here for the forehead, which then let me zoom in actually. So this line here for the forehead, which then follows the eyebrow round, yeah, and then you follow the cheekbone down. So you're starting to create the plane here, and there's a plane here, which then leads into the mouth. And then obviously, of course, everything like juts forward. Everything is coming forward. So then you have to remember and try and, it's hard to explain. So because the mouth comes forward, first off, you have the shape here, like the silhouette here, to imply that the face is coming forwards around the mouth area, because we have like, I think that part of the face is to do with the jowls or something, which you kind of need to try and imply is over here as well. So you can see there's this little patch here that is lighter than the rest of it, because if the sun is like shining or the light source is coming this way, this part is sticking out far enough that it would still be lit up. So trying to match that this shape is also happening on this side of the face, even though it's a flatter area in terms of where you're working. That's what you're trying to achieve with like the lighting. And then obviously you've got like the shape here under the mouth. You need to like shade it to, again, imply that the mouth is coming forward. There is then a dip, and then the chin is coming back out. It might actually be easier to show you on the final piece, because I've got the line work as well. Because what I like to do is then afterwards go in and refine everything and like again accentuate the planes that are there. So that's really like what I'm trying to pick out with the colours, and it is best to like try and slowly build up, because then, at least from what I like, you get like gradual gradients. Like I said, because some of my pens are kind of watery because they're getting old, it just kind of lends itself more to blending it a bit. And then with the hair, so it's all about like trying to use colours that work together whilst picking out the shadows and the highlights of the piece. So because I have used like quite a light purple, it kind of sets the tone of it. What am I saying? So then using the blues and darker purples as shadows, it's all kind of in keeping with each other, which is how it kind of says that it's platinum hair. I don't know. And then I would like to go back in with the highlights to, one, give highlights, but two, I think it then also says even more that it is platinum hair. It's really tricky trying to describe this. This is why I can't do tutorials, because I don't know what I'm doing half the time, and it just kind of works out because I just keep going in and picking at it. So similar to the like hair, I like to use blues on the skin to imply the shading, and because it is like one of the darker colours, it is very clearly to do with the shadows. I think another thing that helps is because I went in with like the pencil afterwards, it helps add another dark point, which balances everything out, I think, and refines it a bit better. I think part of what, like, why this colour palette comes around is because although there's like quite a lot of like colours in these sets, like this is a 60 pen set, it is actually quite limited because these are just the colours you get, you know. So if there's not enough of a certain colour, you like kind of have to mix it or just try and use the ones you have in relation to each other. And that's a lot of the reason why I then end up using like strange colours sometimes, is because I'm like, okay, well, I don't have like a dark beige or something, like this is the darkest that there is. So I'm like, okay, so if I want his hair to be like a white but darker, it makes more sense to go for like the purples and the blues, because they are kind of in the similar like colour range, I guess, but it's darker, so it adds the value that I want. And yeah, so that's the case with all of them. Like for example, Valar, he's got like brown hair, but I gave him like blue purple shading, and like the white in his hair, it is a light purple, but when you put it all together, it kind of gives the impression that it is the colours that his hair is. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't really look like a purple, it looks like the white streaks in his hair. This is a really weird video. I hope it's making sense. This is why I don't do these things, because I understand how it works. I don't know how to put it into words, like exactly what I'm thinking, and I have no idea if this is even going to be any help at all. So for these pieces, I ended up using like a couple sets. So this is the one I used the most. I'll put the picture on the screen again because I don't have the lid. This is my favourite RTX set. It's the one that I always go to, which again is why I'm impressed that they've lasted so long. Like, what's up with that? But there are a couple colours that aren't present in this set that I like to use in this piece. So the only other set that I have that have those is this set. So this is the 90 colour set. And it's really handy because obviously there are 90 colours, but the ones that I like to use on the face are 52 and C42. So those are the ones that I used or started using a lot around like the eyes for the brow shadow and just the shading around there in general, because they're darker than the ones that I've been using, but they're still light enough that it's not like crazy dark, and then also they're still like pinks and purples, so it keeps in keeping with the colours that I've been using. And it does have a couple of the colours from this 60 set that I like to use, but it doesn't have all of them, which is a shame. So like it's missing 21 and C21, so really it's only 2 of them. But oh wait, no, because it doesn't have 41 either, so it's kind of tricky because then that's like 2 sets that I've been using. But you could probably make do without those colours. It would just mean like adjusting. So for example, because a couple people have been asking me like which ones would I recommend, because some of you want to try these pens out, but obviously it's not cheap and you don't want to get multiple sets because that's just going to be like a lot of money and not everyone can afford to do that. So if you were like saying you only wanted to get the 90 set, you could probably swap things around, like using the 20 as the base. You could still then use like 19 to slowly layer it up, and just like skip some of these colours. Like 42 would work quite well, although that is a bit more purple than these, so it might be quite a contrast. But you can make it work because there are a lot of nice colours. And then there is like a skin tone range down here. It's quite small, but again it would probably work really nicely with these. And then for example, if you only wanted to get the 60 set, the C52 is quite a good colour. It's pretty close to this one's 52. The only reason I'm not using it is my one's dead, so I don't have it anymore. But you could probably use that for the shading area. It's just a little bit more limiting, but honestly, if you only wanted to use the 60 set, you could really get away with that, because I think it's got quite a lot of decent colours and it is my favourite. And then also one more thing, you may have noticed in the video that like I used other pens for like the highlights in the eyes and for outlining the piece. That is from another set. That's from this set. Again, it's unnecessary, but it's because some pens from my original set are dead or dying. So I used the lightest pen, well, not the lightest pen, but the lightest yellow pen for the highlights and the eye dots. Again, because I just didn't want to use straight up white. It's kind of like similar to how I avoid using black. That doesn't mean I don't ever use black, but if I can, I like to try and use dark purple or dark blue or sometimes even dark red, because I always feel like it just gives a picture way more colour than if you just go in straight with black or white. That's what I've been doing for these pictures. And then for the line art, I've just been using some Faber-Castell coloured pencils. So the ones I've been using are very small now, so I've had to put them in these pencil extenders. I got these off of Amazon. So what I've been using are like a dark purple and a dark red, and then a normal red. I like to mix these two up if I'm using the red or the purple, like usually it's just whichever one I picked up. So I like to use these ones on like the skin parts, you know, anything to do with the face, just outlining the fleshy areas, because then I feel like it, you know, the red kind of looks better with it, because it kind of, you know, like how there's like blood flow in the face or whatever. That's what my reasoning is. I think I also use it in the hair as well, but when it comes to like the clothes and stuff, I want it to be a bit darker because the clothes, obviously they're not flesh. This one's actually an Arteza pencil, I think. This is just a dark purple. So I use this one for the clothes. But I do also go in and add a little bit of it to like the hair, just to pull out like where the shading could be, and it just gives a little bit more depth. Don't really know what else to say about them. It's that's pretty much it. So yeah, I know it's probably not what a lot of people wanted, but this is the best I can do when it comes to explaining what I'm doing. I don't know how to do tutorials, but the thing is, there are tons of tutorials out there from people who do know a bit better what they're saying. I just don't know how to explain my methods, especially since a lot of the ways that like I learn and pick up tricks is just from watching other people drawing as well, or looking at other people's art and noticing things and picking things out. So because that's how my brain works, I really don't know how to like explain it in a more straightforward way that other people want from me. Maybe now that I've explained it a bit better, if you go back and watch them if you want, you might be able to see what I'm talking about in the process of the reels. If you have any questions that I haven't covered in this video, because I'm sure there's a lot I haven't been able to cover, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I will do my best to answer them. I'll probably make a pinned comment if there are a lot that just kind of have an overview of all the questions that have been asked already. So if I do end up doing that, please check that first before asking a question in case it's already been answered there. I do want to say thank you guys so much for all of the attention that these reels have been getting. I wasn't expecting it, because I also was only planning on doing these 2 pages here, but because you guys were enjoying it so much and a lot of you were asking, I did end up also doing these boys. I did Darren. Is that how you say his name? For some reason I don't know how you say his name. I did him because I wanted to draw him, but then I ended up doing these 2 because you guys, a lot of you were really asking me to. It was a lot of fun. I am just very burnt out now because I don't normally do this many portraits like this, and I really put a lot of work into them, and then turning them into reels and filming them the whole time also took a lot out of me. So I'm really glad you guys liked them, but I probably won't be doing any portraits like this for a little bit because I need a break, and if I do end up doing any, I likely won't be filming them because that does add an extra layer of like stress where I'm like, it has to be good enough kind of thing. So this was just a little video because so many people were asking for it. This isn't going to change my typical schedule when it comes to my videos. I'll still be posting them every other Friday, but I am working on some like proper videos, so that should still be expected on one of the Fridays. So I do hope this was helpful, even in just a little bit, like with my opinion on the pens, or just a little bit of how this works, or like why I don't do tutorials. I do want to quickly give a shout out to my patrons as usual though, who are amazing and I am so grateful for. Dispe, Grimclow, The Waffle of Life, Non-Toxic, Saint Nick's, LP, Kira May, Kay, Joanna, Mila, Pretty Rotten, Quiet Rot, Joanna Snake Moon, Humble Frogs, Local Fishkeeper, Mould Ghoul, Farrarware, Sun Arts, Molly Marula, Scout Radley, Sammy Bear 127, Kenzania, Arrow, Charlie, Malorus, Coda, Cindy King, Art by Lavender, Angela's Weird Tales, Rainbow Tea, Breaded Nuggets, Learns, Human Eye, The Moth Bug, Nox, Catbird House, The Tormented Shadow, Sweet and Hopeless, Pocket, Jordan's Tiny Planet, The Coffee Rain, Black Jackal Art, Leela Loves You, Faith, A. Wendu, Ronnie, Olivia Gadbor, Feather, Cheris Needham, Rotting Lettuce, Binixery, Cyrus Orion, Mottled Pixel, Malbon Designs, Gamut Girl, Solar Tortoise, Auden, Redest Lily, Haley, Sienna G, Lady Ratbird, Fia, Greenfinch G Illustration, Lynn, Cody, Kaleidoscope Arm, Cloud, Clearfix, Redders, Ziutka, Beetle Ghost, Melisandra Sinclair, Bria Washington, Hurrier, June, Dakota Garcia, Manon, Lily Likes Art, Rona, Levi, Kira's Cozy Corner, Tink, Daniel McGuinness, Janine, Dios Live, K2, Flossie, Steakosaurus, Yoinks, Stoyan, Bleety, Spooky Chloe, Starry Fern, Kiki, Nuclear Nail Bomb, P. Wright Stuff, Raig Norby, JGP, Spaceman Theo, Slurp, Nosebridge, Cherry, In the Clouds, Nowil, Saturn, SaturnsWar.jpg, Bunny B, Samara, One Joltaire, Lee H, Jen B Burning, Fenray, Cinderus, Mon, I Like Tea and Pokemon, Kaino K, Bland Polecat, Destiny, Kaya D, Jamie, Riggs M23, Lolly, Kendall Collins, Mel Vogel, Lily Lelkels, Lex, Vienne, Dean Marie, Jadan, Minwa, Frillian, Vilania Madeira, Arcangle, and Cindy Flint. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, and yeah, there should be a new video for you guys soon, so I will see you then.